Hello, hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. So, Kali, did you read yesterday's discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so today we will be discussing about what we can say is, see the questions of. See, I think we spoke about the see ଆଜି ମାନେ ଆମର ଆଜି ଘରେ କରେଣ୍ଟ କମ୍ ଅଛି ତେଣୁ ମେ ବି ମାଇ ମେ ନଟ୍ ବି ଏବୁଲ୍ ଟୁ ସି ମାଇ ଫେସ୍ ଓକେ so I may not be able to show you proper face but anyway so let's start so today we will be discussing about policy sciences right unit 5 am I right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, see, what exactly do we mean by policy sciences? Okay. I mean, when we say that, when we try to understand and discuss about policy sciences, because yesterday we spoke about the, importance of, public policies and how that can be useful to people and its importance. So, and we argued that there are two important things which we must remember is the theoretical discussions on, the public policy, particularly different models, and then finally, the importance. Okay, nature scope are also important. Okay, so today we will be discussing about policy sciences. So in policy sciences, what is important is that briefly we will try to understand Laswell's idea of policy sciences. Okay, what exactly Laswell says about the policies and what he says about I mean all these things but the whole idea of the debate about what I can say the I mean the way Laswell has tried to argue. Okay. I mean, the idea of policy analysis, particularly the multidisciplinary perspective. I mean, Laswell's work and approach, as all of us know, that are multidisciplinary in nature. Okay. So, although cost benefit analysis, systems analysis, program planning, budgeting system, which we call as PPBS, and quantitative modeling, it has become very common passwords for policy analysis so that there is a need to reduce all these policies to a set of economic or quantitative indicators which has become pervasive. For example, the PPBS as practiced in the Department of Defense in the US was extended to the Department of Health, Education and Welfare in 1966. So it may be noted that with the advancement of knowledge and policy sciences, focus on unidisciplinary approaches were de-emphasized. So as Stone had stressed that the general tendency of these theories and programs to exclude normative considerations such as what we can say equity was not acceptable to political policy makers. The failures of PPBS and limitations of cost benefit analysis were practical evidence that public policy problems often used to be corrected because of their complex and changing nature. Okay. So what is important is that if you look at drawer, I mean, kali ame alochona karuthile drawer ko bisayare. Yesterday we spoke about drawer. He actually stressed that policy sciences it must integrate knowledge from a variety of branches of knowledge into a super discipline focusing on public policy making. See, public policy science ର basic purpose ଟା କ'ଣ? ତାର କହିବା କଥା ହେଉଛି ଯେ public policy is a study which needs scientific investigation. You cannot just have a chopping approach. ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ जानाई पारी तमे सेटा को गोटे पढ़ी परिबनी. I mean you need to have a systematic investigation, okay, and systematic approach to understand, to study the subject of public policy. So public policy is a science which needs methodological rigorous approach and techniques to study it. Okay, so what is important is that ମାନେ ଯେମିତି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ସାଇନ୍ସରେ ଯେ why it is science, because we need scientific investigation. So similarly public policy also needs scientific rigorous training, methods, techniques which are required to understand the what we call as public policy initiatives. So what is important is that we need to understand these things in a more and more scientific way, so that there is methodological rigorous approach is being followed while trying to study public policy. Okay, so what is important is that there are two things when we try to contextualize the problem oriented perspective. One is policy analysis and the other one is policy process. So in policy process, so these models they emphasize policy analysis which have been dominant among economists, operations researchers and public administrationists, who assumed that policy problems and their solutions could be defined with rational accuracy and subjected to empirical analytical precision. Okay, so Quaid, there is a philosopher whose name is Edward Quaid. He argued that there are 5 elements of public policy analysis. First is identification of objectives. Second is specification of alternatives. Third is recommending policy action and monitoring policy outcomes and evaluating policy performance. So what is policy process? So policy process means that policy analysis it was criticized as being unworkable and dangerous. So the critique of policy analysis focused on constraints of human and particularly institutional rationality that prevent legitimate claims to knowing all possible alternative solutions or being able to forecast specific policy effects. So in place of rational and scientific ideals, democratic and pluralist norms were suggested. So scientific rationality is being replaced by a broader theory of reason in society. So what is important is that policy sciences, when we try to understand the idea of policy sciences, we also need to understand what are the emerging crises. Okay, for example, what are the agenda for policy sciences, what is the importance of normative values. What do we mean by normative values? Any idea about when we speak about normative values? Kiye koi peribo normative values vishayare? When we speak about normative values, what do we mean by that? Kiye koi peribo? What do we mean by normative values? Any wild guess, if at all you are not acquainted with the term? Yes, anything, any idea about normative values? Pratyush, anyone?
Sir, sir, it means following norms. So, like the norms
Eth-
we have in our traditions, customs,
Okay,
approach.
Ethical issues, sir.
okay, very good, very good. What else?
Social
See,
morality and ethical issues.
yes. See, normative values means application of moral values in our day-to-day life. Okay, মানে গোটে ଅଛି ନା ଗୋଟେ what is important is that we know that what is what is important for us. What kind of moral values I mean, which are important. Okay. So, I mean, we follow it. So, when we say that, I mean, these things are important. So, so that becomes, you know, applying principle to us. Okay. And we actually follow that. So, I mean, that is what I mean we mean by normative values. So, normative values, when we try to apply those values in our day to day life experience, so that becomes very, very crucial to our understanding. And that understanding, is central to, any kind of understanding of social science as a discipline, whether we speak about public policy or you speak about public administration, everywhere, everywhere, I mean, so I mean, what I am saying is, so these things are very, very important. Okay, so so normative values are most important. Okay, then what is focus on public management? Focus on public management. That is also equally important. So particularly during 1970s, the policy sciences, they actually addressed topics of evaluation, utilization, implementation and termination. So how do we understand the idea of public management? Public management mane kaun? Okay. So what is the difference between public management and public administration? Or are they same? Okay. So these are some of the complex questions that we try to address. Okay. So so these kind of complex questions, I mean, we try to address, and also continuity and relevance, policy sciences, to what extent they are relevant today, whether we, keep on focusing on all these things. So, I mean, these complex issues are central to the idea of, what I can say is that public policy and policy sciences. Okay, so that is how we understand it. So, so particularly in this unit, what you find is that particularly, tomorrow it's a padiପାରିବ question, what do you mean by policy policy sciences, and discuss its utility, or you can science its relevance kind of questions. Eta tomorrow asi pare mane mate jaha laguchi. Okay, so this might come as a question in your syllabus. Okay, then the next thing is very, very important, which is known as role of intergovernmental relations in policy making. Okay, so देखो one thing is ମୁଁ ତମମାନଙ୍କୁ just ଖାଲି ଗୋଟେ cover କରୁଛି. In case you have any doubts, if you feel that you don't understand here, then please feel free to ask me. Don't hesitate, because this is a counseling class and it is your duty to ask me if there is any doubt on any subject on the syllabus, which is MPA-15. Okay, so don't hesitate to ask me. You are free to ask me at any point of time whenever you feel that you don't understand a particular subject. Okay, so now let us try to understand unit 6, which is known as role of intergovernmental relations in policy making. What exactly do we mean by intergovernmental relations? Kiye kahipariba intergovernmental relations mane kon? What exactly do you mean by intergovernmental relations? Who can say?
Relations with the upper executives and lower executives, and like prime minister and civil servants.
Sorry, can you please repeat?
So like relations between the upper executives and lower executives, and prime minister and civil servants. These are the examples
Excellent,
of
excellent. The point is, it has been defined an important body of activities or interactions occurring between government units of all types and levels within a system. So, the union government, it cannot achieve its goal in an effective and efficient manner without the cooperation of the state and local governments. Okay. So, for example, the national government cannot, what I can say,
Please, its goals.
so what is important is that, I mean, hello, are you able to listen me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the point is, so the union government cannot achieve its goal in an effective and efficient manner without the cooperation of the state and local governments. For example, the national government cannot increase agricultural production, you know, uh, without the support of the state and local governments. So similarly, local government units need the help and support of the union and the state government concerned to meet the challenges relating to the functional spheres. Okay, so what is important is that we need, we need to understand. We need to understand. The point is that, the cooperation among different departments of the government is very, very important. Okay, so for example, the national government cannot increase agricultural production without the support of the state and local governments. Similarly, local government units also need the help and support of the union and the state government concerned to meet the challenges relating to the functional spheres. So this support may be in terms of political guidance, administrative support, and control of financial assistance. Likewise, the union and state governments cannot perform their tasks adequately without the proper support and cooperation of the local government. So thus, for policy formulation, the government structures at the union, state and local levels have to interact with each other. That's most important. Okay, so intergovernmental relations can also be invoked for tackling emergent issues which require, prompt and ready response from the central or state governments. So we may cite a recent example. In the context of the recent water crisis, the union government issued directives to the state governments along with the promise of financial aid to the extent required for tackling the problem of water impurity. So the objective was to control diseases like fluorosis and arsenic poisoning, which have adequate chemical, epidemic, what I can say, endemic proportions in some parts of the country. So states have been asked to prepare projects in this regard, along with information on financial assistance required to meet the problem. Okay. So what are the, this can be a question, the major characteristics of intergovernmental relations in India. There are at least, six, I would say, six characteristics of IGR. They have a bearing on all government units in operation. That is, they have a bearing on all government units in operation. That is, the union government, the state government and local government units. So all of them are involved in integral policy making through effective, what I can say, what I can say, IGRs, effective IGRs. Okay. Then they aim at purposeful behavior of the government officials involved in the policy process at different levels. Second, they aim at regular interaction among public officials, including ministers, legislators, etc. And these functionaries, through frequent interactions based on objective data and analysis, can contribute to the attainment of targets for the given unit of governance. This is again very, very important. Okay. Then we have interaction among all the, what I can say, interaction among all the government actors and official contributes to improvement of the policy process. Financial aspects like loans, grant in aid, revenue sharing, auditing, etc. also strengthen or weaken the intergovernmental relations. Financial assistance and help from the upper units to the lower ones is also a step in this direction and an important component of IGRs. The planning process, 5-year plans and annual plans with innumerable central schemes and matching aid is a unique feature of the Indian polity and has considerable influence on the IGRs. Okay, so I think these are some of the what I can say features of IGRs. Okay, so there are certain models of intergovernmental relations. What are these models? One is inclusive authority model, coordinate authority model, overlapping authority model. These are some of the models of coordination. I mean, more kaya katha je kono na ethre important jinsa hochi kono. So the key point is, I mean, we need to understand the difference between whether central government is capable of doing it alone or it needs the cooperation of different state units, okay, or local units. So that's very, very crucial. Okay. So so jemti amara union level le achi amara executive, legislature, judiciary, state level le madhya same executive, legislature, local level re elected representatives, particularly tame jota sarpanch koucha ba chairman, block chairman koucha ba jilla parishad chairman koucha. I mean, all these things, they are very, very required, to understand and to support the intergovernmental relations. But apart from that, there are also other intergovernmental agencies. Jemti aguru amar India re thila planning commission, hela ebe seta hoyi jaichi niti ayog, okay. Then finance commission, okay. Election commission can also be said about it. I mean, all these things are very, very important when we try to understand what I can say these all these key things. Okay. Then what are the horizontal linkages in IGRs? Okay. So in policy making, there are horizontal linkages at each level of government. So horizontal relationships between different organs can also play a substantive role in policy making process. Okay. So in policy making, which falls within the broad framework of related socio-economic issues, a large number of ministries are involved. So same is the case with some areas of economic development. So the departments dealing with agricultural research, atomic energy sphere, defense, research, science and technology, and electronics frame policies which deal with various aspects of the scientific spectrum. However, in areas like defense and foreign affairs, a single ministry may sort out issues. So the permanent executive in each area of policy making needs adequate coordination, okay, among different departments and subordinate agencies concerned with policy cluster. So in this context, as per the Administrative Reforms Commission, the Prime Minister has an unenviable responsibility to keep the enthusiastic minister, from going too far or too fast, prodding the laggard into action. Okay. So the permanent executive has a significant part to play in policy making. Okay. So the permanent executive has a significant part to play in policy making. The role of the cabinet secretary at the union level and the chief secretary at the state level is worth mentioning. The prime minister and the cabinet secretary at the union level, chief minister and chief secretary at the state level play important roles in the effective functioning of the cabinet and its committees. Okay, as all important policy matters are referred to these committees. So the judiciary also plays a crucial role. As per Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, the Supreme Court has the power to issue directions, orders, or writs to the executive to enforce the laws duly and check executive arbitrariness. Okay, so these are some of the instances where we can feel that intergovernmental relations they need, they have certain significance in a democratic framework. I mean, gote ganatantra re ba gote democratic framework re you certainly lead, these kind of agencies or these kind of cooperation for successful implementation of what we call as the policies. Okay. Then next is role of planning commission. Okay. If you come to unit 7, which is what I can say is role of planning commission and national development council in policy formulation. What is there in units? What is planning commission? Can anyone tell me what is planning commission? Can anyone tell me what is planning commission? କିଏ କହିପାରିବ planning commission? Is there anyone who
Sir,
can
এটা
tell me what is?
government ର ଗୋଟେ
Yes.
sir ଏଟା government ର ଗୋଟେ branch ଆଉ 5 year plan ସବୁ ତାରି under ରେ ଆସୁଥିଲା.
Okay. And what else? Anybody else who knows anything about planning commission?
Planning
Sir,
commission is
planning commission.
Decision structure.
Sorry.
Planning.
planning commission distribute the materials and capitals and revenue between different states and unity territory.
We developed our country in a socialist model. So initially we started.
Sorry. How can you say ki?
This model.
Sir, actually it is an institution, sir.
Yes.
Sir, it is an institution to come out any planning and our
No, but
country.
more question is planning commission whether it is part of the constitution or not.
Part A constitution.
Yes, yes, sir.
Sir, it is just statutory body.
Sorry.
Sir, it is not a part of the constitution. Sir, it is a statutory body. So means,
Sir,
Who said it? Who said it?
Sir, it is a non-constitutional.
Sir, this is a non-constitutional body. This is mainly comes under Ministry Office, and this is constituted to plan different developments around these units of the country, and to invest the GDP
earlier
in
we
different
have plan
developments
expenditure,
of
planned
this
budget,
country.
unplanned budget. At that time we had created this planning commission, but now in this new after 2014, sir, it has been made Niti Ayog. So now there is no plans, rather there is a guidelines to follow.
5-year plans, I think.
Now now we don't have any plans.
Now this is replaced by Niti Aayog, sir.
Hello. Yes, yes.
Sir, sir, this is
See,
not a
I think
constitutional
there
body,
is
sir.
some disturbance from background. There is some disturbance from the background. It has become silent. Okay. See, I think some of you said the right thing that can you give me 1 second? 1 second. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. So the key question is planning commission जो तुम माने जो कहिलो जे it is a non जो माने कहिलो जे it is a non constitutional body, they are right that it is not part of the constitution. It is a cabinet decision. ହେଲା ଗୋଟେ statutory ମାନେ cabinet resolution ଅନୁସାରେ ଏଟା ହେଇଥିଲା. And right now, commission has been replaced by Niti Aayog. Okay, but যেহেতু ତମର syllabus ରେ ଅଛି planning commission, ଆମେ ସେଟାକୁ ପଢିବା. But otherwise, ସେଟା ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଆଉ ନାହିଁ. ହେଲା, ତେଣୁ କଥା ହେଲା ଯେ planning commission role ଟା କ'ଣ? What is its role? Okay, ଦେଖ କଥା ହେଲା ଯେ there are some functions. Okay, first ହଉଛି ଯେ it makes an assessment of the material, capital and human resources of the country, including technical personnel and formulation of proposals on the basis of possibilities of augmenting such resources that are found to be deficient. Okay. Second is, it formulates a plan for effective and balanced utilization of resources in the country. Okay. Third is, it defines the stages in which plan should be carried out and proposes the allocation of resources for completion of each stage. Identify the factors which tend to retard economic development and determine the conditions which in view of the current social and political situation should be established for the successful execution of the plan. It determines the nature of machinery that is necessary for implementation of the plan. Okay, then it apprises the progress achieved in the execution of each stage of the plan and recommends the adjustments of policies and measures that such appraisal may show to be necessary. Okay, then it makes interim or ancillary recommendations which appear to be appropriate either for facilitating the discharge of the duties assigned to it or on a consideration of prevailing conditions, current policies, measures and development programs, or an examination of such specific problems as may be referred to it for advice by the central or state governments. Okay, so that's important. Public. So in addition to the above mentioned functions which we have said now, the planning commission, it has also been entrusted with the responsibility. There are 5 important responsibilities. Number 1, public cooperation in national development. Number 1. Second, specific programs for area development like hill area development program. Third, perspective planning. Fourth, Institute of Applied Manpower Research. Fifth, overall coordination of Pradhan Mantri Gramoddaya Yojana. Okay, so these things are very, very important. We try understand. Hope you know. Yes, I'm asking you. Hello.
Sir, we could not listen your voice, sir.
Sorry. Question.
Yes, sir.
Question is planning commissioner head kiye? Who heads the planning commission?
CEO of PTL.
Prime Minister, sir.
Prime Minister.
Okay, good, good, good.
The Prime
So,
Minister.
and the deputy chairman ହଉଛନ୍ତି କ'ଣ ମାନେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ସେଟା actually government ବାଛେ deputy chairman କୁ okay so
Amitabh.
you know ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ ଅମିତାଭ କୁଣ୍ଡୁ ଫୁଣ୍ଡୁ ଏବେ ତ ପ୍ଲାନିଂ କମିଶନ ହିଁ ନାହିଁ ଅମିତାଭ କୁଣ୍ଡୁ କୋଉଠୁ ଆସିବ
No, no,
there
in
is no
Niti Aayog.
planning commission.
Niti Aayog, sir. In Niti Aayog.
Niti Aayog.
Okay. So, I mean, planning commission you know, specialist divisions ତାଙ୍କର ଅଛି okay ଯେମିତି planning commission specialist division ହଉଛନ୍ତି development policy division financial resources division labor employment and manpower division plan coordination division perspective planning division project appraisal and management division international economic division infrastructure division program outcome and response monitoring division socio-economic research unit state plan division multi-level planning division okay which also includes hill area development decentralized planning etc. Okay, so as our unit is concerned with planning and policy making, therefore we also discuss briefly the role of perspective planning division. Okay, so perspective planning division plays an important role in overall integration of the plan into macroeconomic framework, delineating possibilities and constraints and projecting a long-term vision of development in terms of potentials, constraints and critical issues. Okay. In addition, as a part of its regular activities, you know, prospective planning division, they actually do some of the functions. Okay. First is they assist in planning commission in informing its views on technical issues like regarding planning, shift in public sector program from non-planned to planned side of government expenditure and vice versa. Prepares an overall framework for medium and long-term plans by analyzing implications of long-term objectives for the appropriate strategy of development. You know, then it examines the current policies and programs, especially in the intertemporal, interregional and intersectoral contexts. Okay, then it estimates state-wise poverty ratios including household consumer expenditure surveys conducted by NSSO and analyzes the changes in the poverty indices. Okay, then studies consistency between plan objectives and plan allocation, conformity of regional distribution of public sector outlays with the regional needs of development, effect of price rise on consumption levels of people in different income groups, trends in saving, investment and economic growth, trends in foreign trade, and implications of various developments in the economy of public investment. Renders advice on the influence of macroeconomic development on principal commodities like food, crude oil, steel, etc. Contributes to the response by planning commission on issues regarding planning process posed by parliament, forum of economists and economic editors, representatives of economic planning agencies in the states, etc. Okay, so I mean, when we try to understand planning commission, what we see is that it actually once upon a time was central to the development process in India. Okay, that we must understand. Then there is also another important agency which is known as National Development Council. आमे जो पूर्व यूनिट रे पढ़िले नहीं इंटर गवर्नमेंटल रिलेशन एगुड़ा कहूँ तार सब एजेंसीज ओके प्लानिंग कमिशन हो बा इलेक्शन कमिशन हो फाइनेंस कमिशन हो बा नेशनल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल हो हैला एगुड़ा सब जाक तांकर माने एगुड़ा होची तांकर कोन माने इम्पोर्टेंट इंटर गवर्नमेंटल एजेंसीज ओके देन तापर होची जे ए जो
सर
एनडीसी वाला यस
सर
प्लीज
इलेक्शन कमिशन एंड प्लानिंग कमिशन ए
हाँ
दि भितर डिफरेंस मेन डिफरेंस कोन
इलेक्शन कमिशन देशर इलेक्शन करेइबो प्लानिंग कमिशन देशर
हाँ
विकास
सर
विषय रे हाँ
हाँ सेटा तो सत था इलेक्शन कमिशन स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी ना नहीं
एब्सोल्युटली स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी भाई
एंड प्लानिंग कमिशन स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी नथिला ना
ना ना ना प्लानिंग
एंड
कमिशन आम
प्लानिंग
देशर
कमिशन
कौन जगह संविधान में लिखा है
हाँ सर आ गोटे डाउट थिला इलेक्शन
हाँ
कमिशन प्रधानमंत्री मिनिस्टर हाउस टू इंडिपेंडेंटली काम करथला बट शायद बोधे प्लानिंग कमिशन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफिस रु काम करछ ना सीधा
हाँ हाँ माने प्लानिंग कमिशन टा डायरेक्टली मॉनिटर्ड बाय पीएमओ किंतु
जी
इलेक्शन कमिशन इज इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ ऑल दीस थिंग्स
इंडिपेंडेंटली ओके सर एती डाउट थिला थैंक यू सर
या ओके 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 हाँ so you know so uh, promote economic policy in non-vital spheres, ensure the and rapid development. Okay. So our जो planning commission important year अच्छी ये जो कौन ना plan 5 year plan कौन जानी
वॉइस क्लियर हो
अरे हम देश जो 5 year plan टा केबे ठेबे होला किए कह परिबो
So 1952.
1950
Sir, 1951.
sorry sir 1952
no no
sir
तेणु तमर देख ये जो यूनिट रे तमर बेसिकली इंपोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन आसीबो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स ऑफ प्लानिंग कमिशन डिस्कस इट्स वर्किंग ओके किभली भाबरे एटा इवैल्यूएट्स दी वर्किंग ऑफ प्लानिंग कमिशन इन इंडिया एटा गोटे निश्चित क्वेश्चन लेखिक रखय बेठारू and definitely this question will come even when you prepare for outside important examinations this question also there is a possibility जे एई प्रकार क्वेश्चन बाहर भी आसीबो हैला आज सिना प्लानिंग कमिशन नाही किंतु आगुर तो थिला ना ता विषय रे तुमको तो क्वेश्चन लोक पचारिबे तन तमे एई यूनिट टा भल्ला करी पढिबो एई यूनिट टा बहुत इंपोर्टेंट माने पर्टिकुलरली तार इवैल्यूएशन यस यस यस
sir, can you repeat the question, sir?
ना I mean what is planning commission okay
Yes, sir.
then or then what is its what are its functions what is planning
Yes, sir.
commission and what are its functions evaluate the working of planning commission in post independence India
Yes, sir.
ए क्वेश्चन टा तमरा डेफिनेटली आसीबो तमरो एथिर भाबियार किछि नै ओके
Yes, sir.
हाँ तमर ए क्वेश्चन टा को तम माने टिके ये करो टिके हैला तापरे नेक्स्ट होची तमरो जे कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट ओके जोटा अछि तमरो कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट विषय किछि आईडिया अछि तम मानकर
No,
हेलो
sir. No, sir.
जानि न
Nice, sir.
ओके ताहले से देख कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट रहउची जे हमर जोटा तमे जने कि ओटे पिला कहले नि जे कैबिनेट रे जो पीएम ऑफिस अछि ओके
yes
तो
sir yes sir
हाँ सेमती गोटे कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट इन पॉलिसी माने कहूची कि जो कैबिनेट मंत्री माने थांती हमर गोटे कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट अछि तो सेमाने केभली भाबरे पॉलिसीज को कंट्रोल करंती सेटा होची ये यूनिट रो मुख्य कथा पर्टिकुलरली पीएम ऑफिस कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट एगुडा सब जाक होची इंपोर्टेंट माने जोटा कि दे कंट्रोल एक्चुअली एवरीथिंग तो ये जो कैबिनेट सेक्रेटेरिएट अच्छी तार काम होची the following are some of the works. For example, convening of the meetings of the cabinet in I mean on the orders of the prime minister, preparation and calculation and circulation of the agenda, circulation of papers related to the cases on the agenda, preparation of a record of discussions taken, circulation of the record after obtaining approval of the prime minister, keeping a watch on the implementation of the decisions taken by the cabinet. Okay, so these are some of the important functions of cabinet secretariat. So there is a cabinet secretary. Okay, cabinet secretary is very important. So the office of cabinet secretary and its functions, it has also evolved over the years. As head of the civil service, he presides over the committees of secretaries, and these committees they examine the inter-ministry matters and other issues that concern the government as a whole. As a rule, the cabinet secretariat they don't prepare papers for the cabinet or its committees. This function is performed by the concerned ministries. Okay. However, the cabinet secretary it only oversees the agenda papers. It is only on rare occasions that the cabinet secretary prepares a paper for the cabinet. He actually attends all the meetings of the cabinet and its committees. He is also responsible for preparing the agenda, priority of items, and allocation of subject to cabinet committee on the direction of the prime minister. Okay. माने मोर कहया कथा हला कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी गोटे बहुत इंपोर्टेंट रोल जेमते हमर ओडिसा रे चीफ सेक्रेटरी अछंती सेमते कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी. Okay, and the cabinet secretary therefore plays a very significant role in the policy apparatus, but essentially in a servicing sense, except in personal matters where he, as the head of the civil service, has a much greater influence. However, the significance of his position depends upon the style of functioning of the prime minister and the amount of confidence he possesses, in the cabinet secretariat. So all the same, the cabinet secretariat has established itself over the years as a significant institution in the policy making process. First is administrative reforms, mane hitla 1966 to 1969. ସେଇଠି actually cabinet secretary actually they recommended करथिले cabinet secretary for a period of 3 years. Okay, जे माने जो पे से माने व्यक्ति चर्चा करथुले. बट एठी होची तमे पुणी एठी पीएमओ कर जतबळे पीएमओ ऑफिस रो मध्य गोटे एठी डिस्कशन पडिबो जेटा कि तमरे थिरे अछि रोल ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स ऑफिस. Okay, so some of the important matters that require the prime minister's personal attention include important defense related issues, decorations, both civilian and defense, where presidential approval is required, all important policy issues, proposals for appointment of Indian heads of missions abroad, and requests for grant of agreement for foreign heads of missions posted to India, all important decisions relating to the cabinet secretariat, appointments to the state administrative tribunals and the central administrative tribunal, okay, Union Public Service Commission, Election Commission, appointment of members of statutory constitutional committees and commissions attached to various ministries, all policy matters relating to the administration of the civil services and administrative reforms. Okay, and then special packages announced by the Prime Minister for states, all judicial appointments for which President's approval is required. All these things are very much part of the PMO, they come under the jurisdiction of PMO. Okay, then there is also an advisory committee, councils to Prime Minister. Okay, so from time to time the actually Prime Minister appoints committee, councils and commissions to advise him on specific policy matters. So we will be looking into some of the committees, councils, for example like scientific advisory council to Prime Minister, advisory group on foreign affairs to Prime Minister, the economic advisory council, the trade and economic relations committee, the energy coordination committee, atomic energy commission, these things are very investment commission. Okay, and there are hundreds of examples where the PMO office has intervened on many important issues. Okay, so when we try to evaluate the PMO office and cabinet secretariat, what is important is that in a parliamentary democracy, the cabinet actually initiates and decides public policy concerning almost every sphere of government activity. So without its approval, no policy proposal can become effective. So, actually today we have discussed, what is important, the role of cabinet secretariat and prime minister office in policy making. Whether it is in Britain or in India, okay, because we both are two important democracies and they are related to each other because we borrowed most of the democratic things from Britain. Okay, the main task is a formidable one of servicing and proceedings of the cabinet itself and of the complex array of cabinet committees. So the cabinet secretariat is neither an enforcement agency nor it is very active instrument for policy formulation. Policies and the plan emerge from the departments within the framework of the general strategy laid down by the parliament. So as rightly observed by the Peter self, that the cabinet secretariat occupies the parliament. Okay. So as rightly observed by Peter self, Peter self, who is not a famous columnist. Okay, that the cabinet secretariat, it actually occupies the middle ground between the two main sources of policy making in government, political, that is party policy and departmental policy. माने political parties मानकर गोटे policy थाए एवं government रो गोटे policy थाए, तो सेमाने actually गोटे channel of communication, so they are very important in democratic structures. तेणु so ସେଥିପାଇଁ କୁହାଯାଏ ଯେ so the entire structure of cabinet is built around cabinet secretariat. Okay, ତେଣୁ କଥା ହେଲା ଯେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ discuss କରୁଛେ ବା when we try to understand, ଆମର ଏଇ particular unit ରେ ଗୋଟିଏ important question ହେଇପାରେ ଯୋଉଟା ମତେ ଲାଗୁଛି ଯେ evaluate the role of cabinet secretariat and PMO in public policy process. ओके, सेमानकर कौन रोल रही जदि ए क्वेश्चन पड़े ताहले तांकर जो फंक्शन गुड़ाक आम आलोचना कले बा तुम से नोट रे तुम पाइपर सेटा को ही तुम मैंने लिखो. ओके, जे पब्लिक पॉलिसी एमानकर कौन काम एक्चुअली कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरीट रो कौन काम, पीएम रो कौन काम, सेटा तुम मैंने डिस्कशन करिवो, नहले किछि लाभ मिलिवनी. ओके, तेणु यही क्वेश्चन टा निश्चित भाव में यूनिट रे पड़ो. एथिरे माने मते जहा लागुची other things are not very important मते कहीं लागुनी, तबे ए यूनिट टा मते लागुची डेफिनेटली ए जो फंक्शंस टा पड़िबो, इवैल्यूएट ए जो इवैल्यूएशन टा पड़िबो, ए जो पब्लिक पॉलिसी रे प्लानिंग कमिशन आ पीएमओ सॉरी जो पीएमओ आ कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरीएट यार इवैल्यूएशन टा डेफिनेटली पड़िबो मते लागुची. ओके, तेणु तुम मैंने गोटे करिपरिबो जे एईटा को नेकी तुम मैंने गोटे नोट्स करो एवं जदि चाहिबो you want to show me, you can always show me again. ओके, तेणु मत देखई परिबो, मते व्हाट्सएप रे सेंड करि परिबो नोट्स. बट इन एनी केस आउ कोन कार किछि जो चारिटा यूनिट विषय रे आमे आज गोटे जो ब्रॉड डिस्कशन करले, कार किछि डाउट अछि? इज देयर एनी डाउट on the topics that we have discussed today? I mean आम तो बहुत क्विकली खाली डिस्कस कले. तेणु तुम मैंने आज कौ मैंने सब घर पढ़ी के आस मत कहला आग, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हैव स्टडीड एट होम? टेल मी ऑनेस्टली.
Sir, I just overlooked it. I don't read it in full length. I have to read it again.
Okay, who else they have studied it? किए पढ़ी छ एटा को?
I just look up I said myself Satyama.
हाँ हाँ,
I only
এটা
saw
পড়িছো?
only the papers, overlook the, not read properly, sir.
ଓକେ, ଖାଲି ଓଭରଲୁକ୍ କରିଛ ସେମାନେ ସମସ୍ତେ। ଓଭରଲୁକ୍ କଲେ
Sir,
ହବନି।
because
ଗୋଟେ
sir, only exactly 4 chapters. There is many pages to read that taking time,
ହଁ,
sir.
ସେଇଟା ତ ଠିକ କଥା, ସେଇଟା ତ ଠିକ କଥା। ତେଣୁ ତାପରେ ଆମର ନେକ୍ସଟ ଯୋଉ କାଲି ଅଛି କ୍ଲାସ, ସେଥିରେ ଆମେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିବା 4ଟା ଜିନିଷ। ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା ଯେ ରୋଲ ଅଫ ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ଅର୍ଗାନାଇଜେସନ୍ସ ପଲିସି ମେକିଂ, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ରୋଲ ଅଫ ଇଣ୍ଟରନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ଏଜେନ୍ସିଜ ଇନ୍ ପଲିସି ମେକିଂ, ଆଉ କନଷ୍ଟ୍ରେଣ୍ଟସ ଇନ୍ ପବ୍ଲିକ ପଲିସି ଫର୍ମୁଲେସନ and public policy implementation system। अच्छा, ଏଇଟା ତମର କେତେ ତାରିଖ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ କ୍ଲାସ ଅଛି?
30
30 December 30।
13 ଡିସେମ୍ବର 13।
No, sir,
30
15।
sir
Sir,
3
30
15 ତାରିଖ
December
ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଅଛି।
30
ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ, ତମର MPA 15ଟା କେତେ ତାରିଖ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଅଛି?
15 ତାରିଖ, sir। 15 ତାରିଖ।
15 ତାରିଖ, ତାମାନେ ଆଜି ହେଲା 12,
ଆଜ୍ଞା, sir।
ଆଜି 12 ହେଲା,
Yes, sir।
12, ତେଣୁ 13 ତାରିଖରେ 4ଟା, 14 ତାରିଖରେ, ହଁ ଠିକ ଅଛି, 4ଟା କଲେ ହିଁ ସରିବ 15 ତାରିଖରେ, ନାଇଁ କି? ତେଣୁ ତମର କାଲି ହବ 9, 10, 11, 12, ପହର ଦିନ ହବ 13, 14, 15, 16। ହଁ, ତାପରେ ହଉଛି ତା ପର ଦିନ ହଉଛି ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଦିନ ହଉଛି ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ପଲିସି ଇଭାଲୁଏସନ, ଆସେସିଂ ପଲିସି ଇମ୍ପାକ୍ଟ। ଓକେ, ତେଣୁ ଏଇଟା ହବ, ଠିକ ଅଛି।
Sir,
ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ସେଇ ଏନିୱେ ଆମେ କାଲି ପୁଣି ଆଲୋଚନା କରିବା ସେଇ 9 ନମ୍ବର ୟୁନିଟ ରୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବା ହେଲା। We'll start from unit 9. Okay?
yes, sir।
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
So, thank you very much. Tomorrow we will meet again.
Thank you, sir। Thank you, sir।
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
thank you so much sir
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir।
Hello.